Good morning, Bucknutters. It's Tuesday, March 24th, 2015. I am Dan Rubin. This is the Bucknuts Morning 5 and then some. Today on the show, we're going to talk about Urban Meyer and how the last vestige of fear of his regime could have been removed. And we're also going to be joined by Alex Gleitman, who's going to give us an update on the draft stock of basketball player D'Angelo Russell, as well as a host of football players looking to hear their name called for Sunday football at the NFL draft, which is coming up. We've already had a big day on the site today. Bill Kurelic has a story about Rashawn Gary, the standout defensive tackle from Paramus Catholic in New Jersey, and Tristan Wallace from DeSoto in Texas, the alma mater of Dontre Wilson, a quarterback. Both will be visiting Ohio State this weekend. Those are two enormous visits from out-of-state prospects. And make sure you keep it locked into Bucknuts all day. Spring practice resumes today at 11 a.m. Urban Meyer will meet with the media. We will be there with bells on for a complete report. So it's a packed day at Bucknuts, Bucknutters. Sit back and enjoy. You could make the argument that things are going as well now for the Ohio State football program as they have ever gone. Coming off a national championship, slated to be number one in the country, an incredible depth of talent coming back, and I think you can plan for the next NFL draft, not this one coming up, but the next one to have a very Buckeye scarlet and gray flavor, which is fantastic. Recruiting is at all-time high, and the question is really, what could derail Ohio State? Certainly won't be Alabama or Oregon, so what could it be? I had a conversation when Urban Meyer was hired that has stuck in the back of my mind, and there's always been some lingering doubt, or at least a little bit of a fear, based on what this dude told me now. I can't give his name, but the gentleman who provided this information to me was once a coach at Florida, so he knows of what he speaks. But in this case, I'm thankful that he is either wrong or Urban had corrected the issue. And this is what the issue was. This gentleman that I spoke with was confident that Urban Meyer could return Ohio State to dominance. His question was, once they returned to dominance and the staff started peeling off and taking jobs, i.e. Tom Herman to Houston, what would he do to replace them? There are some who believe, and this coach was one of them, that the issue with Meyer at Florida wasn't recruiting, wasn't talent. It was his coaching staff after the initial surge, and they won the national championship, and people like Dan Mullen peeled off and took the Mississippi State job. Apparently, Urban didn't do as great a job hiring replacements, or at least ones that he felt the same about, and tried to do too much, hence his burnout. So my fear was this time around when he had mythic success, which he has, and guys started peeling off, that they'd have issues. Well, they replaced Mike Vrabel with Larry Johnson. How's that going? Pretty good? I'd say so. They replaced Tom Herman with Tim Beck. Now, we haven't seen that in action yet, but I would certainly say that things are promising. And Beck looks like he's going to have a fine career here. He's got a lot to work with, that's for sure. I suppose you could make the argument that this is a lingering issue. Let's say someone like Ed Warner, as has been bandied about, is highly pursued and takes a head coaching job next year. He'll be certainly a difficult one to replace. By the same token, I think we've seen that Urban has grown as a coach. He's always been fantastic as a head coach. But in terms of his long-term viability at Ohio State, and his ability to extend what he has built over a long period of time, for me, based on what I had heard heading into this, the major hurdle has been crossed and shown that he has an ability to hire new people. He can replace guys with guys that are just as good or better, and he won't be a micromanager. He'll sit back and let these guys do their job. I think the results will speak for themselves.
Alex Gleitman here, Bucknuts Morning 5, to talk Ohio State draft stocks. We'll start first with Ohio State freshman point guard, shooting guard D'Angelo Russell, who is expected to announce for the NBA draft in the next couple of weeks. We shared yesterday in the boarding house that Andy Miller and ASM are the front runners to work with Russell when he decides to make that leap into the pros. And it's a move that Russell probably has to make at this point. He's projected to be a top 5 pick in the draft. He's definitely probably needs to get a little bit stronger before he hits the NBA, but at the same time, that silky smooth shot, that great vision, ability to make plays with the ball in his hands, I think he's going to be a pretty good pro. I think the first couple years may be a little bit of a learning curve for him as he continues to get stronger and learn how to excel at the pro game, just like kind of that first quarter of the Ohio State season this year at the college level was for him. But I think he'll be an exceptional pro down the road. I think somewhere like Philadelphia would be an excellent fit for him, where they already have some established big men, some good wings. As soon as that announcement is made, we wish the best of luck to D'Angelo Russell. Moving on to football, let's talk a little bit of stock up, stock down. we're hearing after Ohio State's pro day that wide receiver Devin Smith's stock is up, and there's a chance he could still end up in the late first round. New England would definitely be a place to watch at number 32 overall. Some other, I'd say the earliest he could go would potentially be the Chiefs in the middle of the first round. I think they're at 17 or 18. Devin's definitely a guy who's looking at late first, early second at this point. Michael Bennett's a guy who is stocked down. Right now, people are looking at him as kind of a tweener. He's not really athletic enough maybe to be a 4-3 defensive end. He's not really big enough to be an NFL defensive tackle. Certainly not, in a 3-4. And some people don't believe in a 4-3. I'm personally someone who thinks he could play tackle on a 4-3. I think he could play end in a 3-4. That might actually be his best spot. But at the end of the day, right now, Bennett's stock is down, and I'm seeing him potentially going as low as the late third round, which I think would be a great value for someone to pick up, the Ohio State senior defensive tackle. Doran Grant's a guy who had an excellent Ohio State pro day. He had a good NFL combine, but I'm still seeing him going in the third round, middle to late third round, potentially the latest early fourth. I think late second would be the earliest he's taken. But again, I think he ends up middle of the third round based on what we're hearing. Jeff Heureman, a guy he's not exceptionally good at anything. I mean, he's a very solid blocker. He's very solid, in terms of athleticism. His pass catching is good. He's just a good, solid, reliable player. I think he'll play in the league for a long time. But I see him being a fourth round pick at this point. Third round's being mentioned as the earliest. Fifth or sixth round. I've seen mentioned more than off in the last week or so. But Jeff Heureman, I think he could settle in to be a fourth-round pick for someone down the road. I think right now those are the only four Buckeyes you could definitely expect to be drafted. Some other guys along the way could be picked up in the later rounds. But we'll see as we get closer to the NFL draft at the end of April, early May.